Hey Disney fans, I'm Matt from the Imagineer podcast, and in today's video we are going to be talking about the best Walt Disney World and Disneyland attractions. So we're going to be kicking off round one at Walt Disney World and deciding between Space Mountain and Splash Mountain over at the Magic Kingdom. Now I'll be honest, this is a really tough one, right? Space Mountain, it was directly influenced by Walt Disney. It's fun, it's in the dark, it's a classic, iconic attraction over at Walt Disney World. On the other hand, Splash Mountain, it's intricate and detailed, has amazing theming throughout. You have intricate storytelling, you have iconic songs, and a family-friendly attraction that really takes Flumes to the next level. So between these two, again, it's a really tough call, but I'm going to go with Splash Mountain. Also in round one, we have Thunder Mountain going head-to-head against Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. Thunder Mountain is a classic attraction. It was designed by legendary Imagineer Tony Baxter. And then you have Seven Dwarfs Mine Train. It's a newer ride, it has great animatronics, it's still a fun and exhilarating attraction, but at the end of the day, I'm gonna go with Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Although Seven Dwarfs Mine Train is incredible, nothing compares to taking that wildest ride in the wilderness through the Old West, so Thunder Mountain gets my vote between these two attractions. For the third head-to-head, we are going to slow things down just a little bit and decide between the TTA Peoplemover over in Tomorrowland or the Walt Disney World Railroad. The TTA Peoplemover is all over Tomorrowland, takes you through a quiet, relaxing journey above Tomorrowland itself, and you go through many different attractions, of course, including Space Mountain. And then a Walt Disney World Railroad is really closely tied to Walt and his love for trains. It is a great way to get from place to place around the Magic Kingdom. My choice here is going to be the TTA Peoplemover. It is relaxing, enjoyable, and is a ride that people come to ride again and again over and over. So TTA Peoplemover gets my vote between these two attractions. Okay, now for the fourth, this is arguably the toughest decision I had to make. It's between the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean. Now let's start with the Haunted Mansion. It has an incredible experience that starts before you even board your dune buggy. You've got the stretching room as part of the pre-show. Then you have that incredible Paul Frees narration. The details and the special effects throughout the attraction are classic, such as the Pepper's Ghost effect over in the ballroom. And then for Pirates of the Caribbean, you could argue that it has a better queue. It has a drop in the dark, which makes it fun. You still have those special effects. You have some iconic scenes. This is a really tough decision. My choice is going to go to the Haunted Mansion. Nothing to me compares to the Haunted Mansion. The ballroom's incredible, Madame Leota's incredible, so Haunted Mansion for me beats out Pirates of the Caribbean. Now let's change parks and head from the Magic Kingdom over to Epcot. Between Test Track and Soarin', two really incredible attractions. They're both currently in their second version. Test Track is so much fun, right? You go through and feel like a test dummy. You go through this track, it has dark ride elements, it has that quick speed outside, close to 65 miles an hour, so it's overall a really fun attraction. But then Soarin', although it's not quite as exhilarating, it's still so much fun. You get that sensation of flight. It was an inventive ride design from Mark Sumner, the Imagineer who created it. I'm gonna have to say, Soarin' beats out Test Track. For the next one, we're gonna take two completely different attractions at Epcot, Mission Space versus Spaceship Earth. We know that Mission Space is an exhilarating attraction. It takes guests through an experience that most people will not get to experience in their lives, which is boarding a rocket and heading either to Mars or orbiting over the Earth with the Orange Mission or the Green Mission. And in Spaceship Earth is the classic attraction at Epcot. It is the signature ride over at that park. Everybody knows that famous geosphere. And then you have amazing narrators who've narrated this between Walter Cronkite and Jeremy Irons and now Dame Judi Dench. So between those two attractions, Mission Space and Spaceship Earth, my vote goes to Spaceship Earth. Nothing compares to the optimism and the spirit of Spaceship Earth and how it ties so closely to the original spirit of Epcot Center. Now let's journey from Future World to World Showcase. We're gonna put Frozen Ever After against the American Adventure. Frozen Ever After, while a lot of Disney fans are nostalgic and missing Maelstrom, it is a really great addition to the park, to be honest. It still has elements of Maelstrom. It's got pretty much the same track with an extension. You have great songs that if you love the movie Frozen or if your kids love the movie Frozen, is a wonderful attraction for them. I think the Elsa scene is an amazing part of that ride. And then you have the American Adventure. That'll just leave you feeling so patriotic when you walk out of those doors. You've got that Golden Dream song stuck in your head for hours after you leave that attraction, but you can only decide on one of them. I gotta give my vote to Frozen Ever After. And lastly, on the left side of the bracket, we have Rock and Roller Coaster versus Tower of Terror. Both e-ticket attractions over at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Rock and Roller Coaster is a classic attraction over at the studios at this point. You have the blaring music of Aerosmith. That launch is incredible. We all love to head into that super stretch limo. A really cool ride. Then you have Tower of Terror. All the details inside, the storytelling, the ominous and foreboding character of the building against how impressive it really is. You have this drop ride, but they take it to the next level with those dark ride elements, those classic special effects, and the randomized drop sequence. So I think you know where I'm going with this one. My vote goes to Tower of Terror. All right, let's head into round 2 on the left side of the bracket. I'm going to keep this one rapid fire. First on our list is going to be Splash Mountain versus Thunder Mountain. Both Frontierland attractions, both e-tickets, but in my book, Splash Mountain beats out Thunder Mountain. Thunder Mountain just can't compete, in my mind, with Splash Mountain, so that gets my vote and moves on to the next round. Next up in round 2, we have an odd duo, TTA Peoplemover versus the Haunted Mansion. I love the TTA Peoplemover. It is, again, a relaxing attraction. I will ride that over and over again, but Haunted Mansion definitely has to beat it out. It was one of those classic Walt Disney attractions, and for all the reasons I mentioned earlier, it gets my vote over the TTA Peoplemover. Heading over to Epcot in round 2, we have a tough one, Soarin versus Spaceship Earth. I'll be honest, I had to think a lot about this one, and I might, again, get some hate over this, but I had to go with Soarin. Spaceship Earth is that iconic attraction, but to me, nothing beats that wow factor again of feeling like you're truly flying over the world. Soarin moves on to the next round. And lastly, in round 2 over at Walt Disney World, we have Frozen Ever After versus Tower of Terror. I didn't even have to say it. It's Tower of Terror. Round 3 on the left side bracket, we're getting so close to the final 4. We have Splash Mountain up against Haunted Mansion. This is where it gets really tough. They're both incredible attractions, but at the end of the day, my vote for this one goes to Splash Mountain. And lastly, in round 3, we have Soarin versus Tower of Terror. They both give you that feeling of flight, but my vote definitely goes to Tower of Terror. The details in that attraction are just incredible. Soarin relies a little too much on screens for me, so Tower of Terror moves on to the next round. Final 4 on the left side of the bracket, here we go. It is Splash Mountain up against Tower of Terror. How could you even vote? This is so tough. But at the end of the day, my vote goes to, drumroll please, Tower of Terror. Nothing compares to Tower of Terror. Tower of Terror is going to be moving on to the final round. For round 2, we are going to move over to Disneyland, but you're probably wondering why we forgot some of the attractions at Hollywood Studios and Animal Kingdom. That's because it's moving into the Disneyland bracket. There are just too many attractions over at Walt Disney World. They have to spill over into the right side. So first up, we have Star Tours versus Toy Story Mania over at Disney's Hollywood Studios. Toy Story Mania is a fun 3D interactive adventure and game that takes you through the world of Toy Story. It is a fun ride, the whole family can ride it. The ride itself is pretty enjoyable, and so that makes it a very competitive attraction. And then you have Star Tours that takes guests into the world of Star Wars, into a galaxy far, far away. Randomized scenes now, you have 3D now. The queue is wonderful, you have C-3PO and R2-D2. My vote, not surprisingly, goes to Star Tours. Toy Story Mania, again, is wonderful, but Star Tours, in my mind, certainly beats it out and moves on to the next round. Next up in round 1 on the right side, we have Expedition Everest versus Flight of Passage. I think you know where we're going with this one, though. Expedition Everest is wonderful. It put Animal Kingdom on the map with thrill seekers. It is filled with details. They have literally thousands of artifacts. You have really incredible storytelling. And then the coaster itself is one of the best coasters in Florida. But then you have Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage, as we all know, has moved some guests to tears. The queue, you could spend hours in that queue and not get bored. It has one of the most convincing animatronics I have ever seen at a Disney attraction. The way they separate guests into small groups is so clever. So, of course, not surprisingly, my vote here goes to Flight of Passage. All right, next up, we have Kilimanjaro Safaris in this corner, Dinosaur in this corner. Two literal corners of the park. Kilimanjaro Safaris was the attraction that I worked on. Can you not tell by my energy level over at Disney's Animal Kingdom when I was a cast member? It is larger than the size of the Magic Kingdom. The storytelling is wonderful. It teaches conservation. It teaches you about the animals itself. But then you do have Dinosaur in this corner. It's in the dark. It is scary. You have larger than life dinosaurs. You can't experience that in real life. But at the end of the day, you can only pick one. And again, not surprisingly, my vote here goes to my old stomping grounds, Kilimanjaro Safaris. Okay, don't worry, West Coasters, we are now heading over to Disneyland and starting with repeat of the Magic Kingdom, but here we're doing Space Mountain versus Splash Mountain over at Disneyland. Now, Splash Mountain has many of the same elements that it does at Walt Disney World, but in my opinion, the Magic Kingdom version is better than Disneyland, so I think this version kind of gets down on my list just a little bit. On the other hand, we're going to raise up Space Mountain because in my head, it is an amazing attraction, one of my favorites. It has incredible score by Michael Giacchino, really incredible star projection technology, awesome special effects. Space Mountain is getting my vote over Splash Mountain over at Disneyland. All right, now we have at Disneyland Thunder Mountain versus Matterhorn Mountain. Thunder Mountain now has that incredible third lift, really gives you a thrilling adventure through the Old West, in my opinion, the better version compared to the Magic Kingdom version. And then you have Matterhorn Mountain, and Matterhorn Mountain was the first tubular steel roller coaster built at a Disney park. It was designed by Walt Disney. So many twists and turns. It's got an abominable snowman Yeti that shows up many times. My vote goes to Thunder Mountain. We now have Indiana Jones Adventure up against Pirates of the Caribbean over at Disneyland. Two wonderful attractions once again. Indiana Jones Adventure is practically a cult classic over at Disneyland. It was the first enhanced motion vehicle EMV dark ride design. We all know and love it. It was then brought over to Dinosaur, Disney's Animal Kingdom. The storytelling is wonderful. Classic elements and music similar to the Indiana Jones movies. And then you have Pirates of the Caribbean, the original Pirates of the Caribbean over at Disneyland Park. It's got two drops and it has incredible ride scenes. You ride up a waterfall at the end. Pirates of the Caribbean perfectly blends the New Orleans culture with an architecture with pirates folklore. My vote here goes to Indiana Jones Adventure. Radiator Springs Racers up against California Screamin', or the Incredicoaster, however you want to describe it. Say what you will about the movie Cars, this attraction put Disney California Adventure on the map. It is an amazing immersive attraction that includes dark ride elements as well as a fun outdoors part of the attraction that makes you feel like you are on a Hot Wheels race car set as a kid. So cleverly designed. And then you have California Screamin' / Incredicoaster, which is one of the longest steel roller coasters that was ever built, over a mile long. It has so many classic roller coaster elements and a really amazing score. Ultimately though, my vote goes to Radiator Springs Racers. It is the better of these two attractions, moves on to the next round. And lastly, in round one, over on the right bracket, we have Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout up against Grizzly River Run. That attraction is essentially an overlay of Tower of Terror. I will give it a lot of credit for an intricate queue with a lot of Easter eggs, as well as a great pre-show. Rocket the animatronic is terrific. The ride itself, on the other hand, not as many people are as impressed with this. There's more screens than practical effects, so that kind of makes it waver a little bit on this side. And on this side, we have Grizzly River Run, one of the original attractions over at Disney California Adventure. It's beautiful, it's thrilling, but in my mind, it doesn't have quite that level of Disney detail that I would love to see. So my vote for this, surprisingly, goes to Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. Moving into round two of the right side of the bracket, we have Star Tours up against Flight of Passage. We know Star Tours is iconic. It has the Star Wars level of fandom to it. It has incredible ride scenes, randomized sequences. It's just a lot of fun. Ultimately, my vote goes to Flight of Passage. The level of immersive detail, storytelling, everything I mentioned before puts Flight of Passage ahead Star Tours in my mind for this attraction. Kilimanjaro Safaris up against Space Mountain. So tough. At the end of the day though, my vote goes to Space Mountain. Kilimanjaro Safaris is a wonderful attraction and I'm so sad to have to vote against it. Space Mountain moves on to the next round. Next up we have Thunder Mountain up against Indiana Jones Adventure. I have to go with Indiana Jones Adventure. Thunder Mountain is great, but Indiana Jones Adventure takes Disney attractions to the next level, so that moves on to the next round. Lastly, in round two, on the right bracket, we have Radiator Springs Racers up against Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout. The only thing going against Radiator Springs Racers is the fact that not many people like the movie Cars. For me, that's not enough to put that attraction down, so Radiator Springs Racers moves on to the next round. All right, round three, moving closer to the final four, we have Flight of Passage up against Space Mountain over at Disneyland. I love both these attractions so much, it pains me to have to pick one of them. But at the end of the day, I choose Flight of Passage. Again, I love this ride. I just have to put Flight of Passage. on top of Space Mountain and move it on to the final four. And lastly, in these semifinals on the right bracket, we have Indiana Jones Adventure up against Radiator Springs Racers, two immersive attractions that are loaded with details from the second you enter the queue till the moment you exit the end of the attraction. I choose Indiana Jones Adventure to move on to the next round. Moving into the final four on the right side of the bracket, we have Indiana Jones Adventure versus Flight of Passage, West Coast versus East Coast, George Lucas versus James Cameron, Avatar versus Indiana Jones. My vote goes to Flight of Passage. It's like picking between two of your kids. Flight of Passage moves on to the finals. Before we head to the final round, the championship, I want to remind you to please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can click right here to subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate every subscriber. Please also be sure to follow us at Imagine Your Podcast on Facebook and Instagram. We have great content there. And if you don't subscribe already to our podcast, please do subscribe to us in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, Podbean, whatever you like to listen to for podcasts, to subscribe to the Imagine Your Podcast there as well. And now, let's move on to the final rounds. So here we go, folks. It's the final round. We're down between Tower of Terror and Flight of Passage. Both immersive attractions. Both incredible ride experiences. Both thrilling, family-friendly, give you a feeling of flight. Both incredible attractions. But at the end of the day, my vote goes to Flight of Passage. Flight of Passage wins my bracket for the best attraction at any Disney park. So I'm curious to hear from you. Do you agree or disagree with any of the decisions I made in this bracket? Let me know in the comments. Again, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching all the way to the end. I am exhausted, but I love this type of stuff, so I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Thanks for watching. Have an awesome day.